I'm Jasmine Robertson, Curatorial Assistant at the Colorado Railroad Museum. Today, for our latest edition of Small Wonders, I'm going to talk about a famous Colorado Railroad tragedy, the Eden train wreck of 1904. In the museum's collection, we have an accident bulletin from the Interstate Commerce Commission, or ICC, from Washington, D.C. The ICC was established after the Interstate Commerce Act was passed in 1887. The act sought to federally regulate railroads, which were privately owned. Part of what the law did was require that railroads submit reports annually to the ICC, initially a 5-member board that was appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. This particular accident bulletin from our archives describes an incident the ICC called Derailment Number 10. Derailment Number 10 refers to the Missouri Pacific's Denver, Kansas City, and St. Louis Express, which was carrying passengers from Denver, Colorado to St. Louis, Missouri on August 7, 1904. The consist included Denver and Rio Grande locomotive number 1009 and its tender, 1 baggage car, 1 chair car, 1 coach car, 2 sleepers, and 1 diner. Though the train was operated by the Missouri Pacific, between Denver and Pueblo, the first leg of the journey was on Denver and Rio Grande trackage, and the train was identified as D&RG train number 11. Henry S. Hinman, the engineer, was given caution orders during the stop in Colorado Springs, which warned of heavy rain from there to Pueblo. He was told to be careful during the run and to be on the lookout for any water. As the train traveled that section, it encountered very little rain, but Hinman, holding with his caution orders, was going about 15 to 20 miles per hour rather than the normal 50 to 60 miles per hour trains typically go in that section. Though there was little rain on the route, there was a lot of water in the arroyo under Bridge 110B, located near the small town of Eden, Colorado. The floodwater had washed out a county road bridge upstream, sending the debris from the bridge to 110B, severely damaging the structure. When train number 11 got to the bridge at around 8:20 p.m., Hinman could not see the water under the bridge. When the engine attempted to cross the bridge, it began to sway. Hinman was able to get the engine to the south bank before the bridge gave out, plunging the locomotive backwards into the floodwaters, along with the chair car, coach car, and baggage car. Only the air brakes on the Pullman sleepers and diner kept the rest of the train from falling in. Some accounts state that M.W. Sales, Pullman porter on the Wayuta, the car closest to the edge, pulled the brakes, while other accounts note that the automatic action of the brakes saved the Pullmans from meeting the same fate. Richard Bernazzi, a passenger on the Wayuta and chief special agent for the Rio Grande Railroad, felt a violent jerk and the train came to a stop. When he got up to investigate and reached the end of the car, he saw that the bridge was gone and there was no sign of the rest of the train. Only 3 individuals that were in the locomotive and cars that went into the flooded gulch survived, including fireman David Mayfield. He escaped the locomotive as it was going into the creek and fell into a ditch. As he stood up, part of the bridge hit him and knocked him down, and then floodwater swept him downstream. He managed to hang on to the debris and swim for the shore. He later stated, "We did not expect anything at all. We were going along at a good speed all the time and never dreamed that anything was wrong. We thought that if there were any kind of a flood near Eden, the operator there would know and he would flag us. We passed there but saw no signals of any kind and never felt any fear." The force of the water washed the cars about a half-mile downstream to where the gulch meets Fountain Creek. It took 4 days to recover the cars from the creek bed, which was empty of water by that time. Crews made sure to diligently search for remains of any individuals that could have been in the cars, and when they were cleared out, they made sure to gather up every bit of wood and debris from the wreck site and burn it, to ensure there was no chance for macabre souvenirs. The number of passengers that lost their lives will never be fully known, as the passenger list found near conductor James Smith's remains was too waterlogged to read, but historians generally place that death toll at 97. About 29 people were on board the train cars at the rear that didn't fall into the floodwaters. The remains of the victims continued to be found long after the wreck. Some washed all the way down to the Arkansas River, while some victims were never found at all. Crowds of people flocked to the disaster scene immediately after. Many had good intentions of organizing and finding remains, but there were those looking for valuables to steal, and still others who just wanted to see the site of such tragedy. The Denver Times reported on August 9th, 2 days after the accident, that around 15,000 people visited the wreck, and at least a third or half of that number expressed their indignation that the railroad company did not furnish excursion trains. In the museum's collection, we have a Pueblo chieftain newspaper published August 17, 1904, 10 days after the disaster. The Eden wreck features prominently in the newspaper, with articles mentioning finding the remains of victims through the community effort of Pueblo citizens to the inquest made by the coroner's jury. The jury was made up of 6 men under Justice I.C. McCallop, Pueblo's acting coroner, as Dr. A.L. Fugard, the official Pueblo coroner, was out of town. The Sunday Star-Journal provided coverage of the inquest results, stating the jury finds that the appalling loss of life and property at Bridge 110B on August 7, 1904, was due to the negligence of the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad Company, though the crew of Train 11 was absolved of all blame. They continued with, had there been a bridge of 1 span on stone abutments, the catastrophe would not have occurred. Had there been a better system of reports and more night operators, as well as a regular system of track walkers and flagmen, train number 11 could have been warned and disaster averted. Though blame was established, it was not considered felony action and no arrests were made. There was controversy surrounding the jury when Reverend J.L. Weaver, of the First Presbyterian Church in Pueblo, gave a sermon calling for the coroner to disband this jury and install a jury of men of standing, reputation, and intelligence. He did not think it was fair for men who were employed by the railroad to be on the jury, and the payment was withheld until it was clear the coroner's jury was called forth legally. Less than 3 miles east of the Colorado Railroad Museum, on West 44th Avenue, is Mount Olivet Cemetery. Interred there is one family who died in the wreck. Kate Gartland and 4 of her children were on the train when it plunged into the floodwaters. The 4 children ranged in age from 2 to 12. It was the children's first train ride. The main headstone notes that the family lost their lives in the Eden wreck August 7, 1904. Behind the family stone are the individual graves of each victim. Kate, Lillian, and Edward were recovered immediately, but it took 10 days to find 2-year-old Ralph. Though each individual has their own headstone, 10-year-old Walter's remains were never recovered. Ed Gartland, Kate's husband, and 1 son were the only members of the family to survive, as they were not on the train with the rest of their family. The Eden wreck remains one of the worst train wrecks in Colorado history. Almost as if to emphasize the freak nature of the accident, Accident Bulletin number 13 in our collection ends the section on Eden with the following paragraph. There was no water flowing in this arroyo when 2 trains passed over the same bridge less than 1 hour before the catastrophe, and it was not raining at this point at the time the wreck occurred. The road has been operated for 33 years, and the permanent way has been on practically the same grade and the same alignment across this arroyo during all this time. The bridge that was washed away was in thoroughly good condition immediately preceding the accident. The conductor who was in charge of the train had served the company in that capacity 22 years, and the engineman 21 years. Though the inquest found the railroad responsible for the loss of life due to the bridge not being able to withstand the force of the floodwater, this accident was certainly a difficult one to predict. No matter how advanced our infrastructure and technology becomes, we humans are never too far from the effects of nature, both in 1904 and even today. All that's left of the wreck today is the sign off of Interstate 25 near Pueblo memorializing the tragedy. It lists both the names of the victims and a summary of what happened. The Colorado Railroad Museum's collection includes sources of many train wrecks, including this one. If you are interested in learning more about this tragedy or others, please stop by our Richardson Library. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Commenting and sharing in particular may qualify as virtual engagements for important funding programs like the SCFD.